You don't just wake up one morning, look out your window, and see strangers planting a giant steel sign in your driveway that says Community Access. But that's exactly what happened to me. I had just finished restoring my grandfather's old mountain house, 40 years of family history, rebuilt board by board, when the HOA swooped in, claiming it wasn't even mine anymore. They called it community property. They said they were putting in gates, and for a moment I really thought I was about to lose everything my family had built. My name's Evan Carter. I grew up visiting this cabin every summer, my grandfather's pride and joy. He built it in 1972 with his own hands, hauling lumber up winding roads, setting beams in mountain soil. After he passed, the place sat abandoned for years until I bought it back through the estate and decided to restore it. Every nail I hammered, every board I sanded felt like I was keeping his spirit alive. It wasn't just a house, it was family history. Which is why when Elaine Porter marched up my gravel driveway with her two cronies in neon safety vests, clipboard in hand, my stomach sank. She didn't knock, didn't ask, didn't even say hello. She pointed straight at me and barked, "This area is designated community access for emergency vehicle turnaround." I laughed at first, thought it was a misunderstanding. But Elaine wasn't laughing. She tapped her clipboard like it was a judge's gavel. "We'll be installing gates before the fire season begins," she said. Gates. On my land. I asked her to show me the legal right-of-way. She flipped open a thick manila folder stuffed with paperwork that looked official, stamped and highlighted. "The HOA Safety Committee has jurisdiction," she said, like she was reciting scripture. My hands trembled not from fear, but from rage. I pulled out my phone and hit record. "This is private property. My grandfather owned it for 40 years and I inherited it. You can't just declare it public use." She smiled like I was a child who didn't understand the rules. "Emergency access takes precedence," she said. Then they packed up their cones and measuring tape, promising to be in touch. That night I sat in my grandfather's old wooden chair, replaying the footage over and over. Something about it felt orchestrated, too polished. And then the headlights started. First at midnight, then again at 1, and again at 3. A slow-moving vehicle crawling past my entrance lights, lingering just long enough to make me wonder, are they watching me, testing? If I'd back down, by dawn I knew this wasn't just a petty neighbor dispute. This was coordinated. A few days later, a thick envelope landed in my mailbox, emergency access guidelines stamped across the front in bright red ink. Inside were 27 pages of dense regulations, all insisting my driveway was now part of a community safety zone. None of it was real, but it looked real. Too real. I needed answers, so I drove down to see Walter Hayes, a neighbor who'd lived on this mountain since the 60s. If anyone knew, it was Walter. He skimmed the papers, shook his head and said flat out, "In 40 years I've never once seen a fire truck need to turn around in someone's yard. They use Miller's Creek. They use the loop by the reservoir, not your driveway." He dug out old county maps, crisp records with official stamps. They showed exactly what I already suspected: no such designation existed. But the deeper we dug, the uglier it got. Walter had gotten a bill weeks earlier for something called safety infrastructure fees, paid before the HOA even planted their signs. Fraud. Pure fraud. They were collecting money for projects they didn't have the authority to do, and I'll admit it, when I pieced it all together, my hands actually shook. This wasn't incompetence, this was a scheme. A scam dressed up in paperwork. The following Thursday, I woke to find my driveway blocked by 6 bright orange cones. 2 surveyors stood there with clipboards, wheels measuring my gravel as if it belonged to them. I stormed outside, phone recording, demanding permits. They mumbled about being contracted by the HOA. I moved every cone myself, one by one, explaining into my phone that no one, not even a community board, could block private access without a court order. The workers looked nervous, packed up and left. But as I sat on my porch after sipping cold coffee, a doubt crept in. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe somewhere in the fine print my grandfather had signed an easement. Maybe the HOA really did have some buried authority. My confidence cracked. I remembered the Hendersons, another family Walter had mentioned who packed up and sold after Elaine pulled similar stunts. The thought hit me hard. Was I just banging my head against something too big to fight? I even considered selling, walking away. My grandfather's lucky nail sat heavy in my palm, and for the first time I felt like I was letting him down. Then the twist came. A construction crew showed up at dawn with a post hole digger ready to start foundation work for a gate. They had a work order. Address correct, description correct. But, under property owner, it said HOA Safety Committee. Not Evan Carter. Not me. The lie was bold, typed in black ink like it was gospel. When I demanded answers, the crew chief called his office and you could hear the unease in his voice. We'll, have to verify ownership with the county. That was the crack in the armor. Elaine had crossed from harassment into straight-up fraud, ordering construction on land she didn't own. Later that week, the contractor's office sent me emails from Elaine herself. She bragged about how easy it was to push work orders through without ownership checks, even admitted the gate was just to justify fees already collected. That was the smoking gun. I called Walter, then Tom, an engineer up the ridge, and Beth, a retired teacher. We laid out everything on my dining table, like detectives' maps, permits, emails, timestamps. It was undeniable. Elaine wasn't protecting the community. She was running a racket. So when she showed up at my door that Saturday, flanked by 6 residents trying to stage a community preparedness meeting, I let them in. But this time, I controlled the narrative. I spread county plats across my dining table, pointed to the official maps, and explained slow, deliberate how property law actually worked. Tom compared their fake diagrams to the real survey lines, exposing flaw after flaw. Beth looked Elaine dead in the eye and asked, "Can you show us recorded authorization for any of this silence?" Elaine shuffled papers but came up empty. The room turned. Neighbors who'd been quiet now realized they weren't alone. They started sharing their own stories, fake fines, bogus notices, threats. The buzz grew, louder voices layering into anger and disbelief. And then came the retaliation. An official county notice arrived: Monday violations for brush clearance, driveway width, emergency access compliance. All bogus. My property had been cleared professionally just 2 months earlier, but someone had filed anonymous complaints carefully worded to trigger inspections. It was a tactic meant to wear me down with paperwork. The county inspector Martinez showed up midweek. He looked around, puzzled. "These reports don't match what I'm seeing." I showed him my evidence, my folders. He nodded slowly. "We see this sometimes. False complaints, harassment through bureaucracy." He documented everything, flagged my case, and promised future complaints would be scrutinized. Finally, someone official saw through it. But Elaine wasn't done. Tire tracks appeared in my backyard. An orange spray-painted X on my fence like a hunter marking prey. Surveillance cars at night. Anonymous texts. It was psychological warfare now, and still I kept documenting. Every photo, every timestamp, every threat added to my growing file. The breaking point came at the community center. I organized a meeting, invited neighbors, laid out 4 thick evidence folders, official route maps, historical deeds, county records, and the fraudulent fee timeline. Elaine arrived in full force, men in suits at her side, binder clutched tight, but the crowd wasn't with her anymore. I spread county documents across the table and asked, "Has anyone ever filed proper permits for this so-called access?" Silence. Tom explained construction law permits easements, owner approval. Beth pressed again. "Show us the legal record." Elaine snapped. "That's enough." Her voice cracked. The room knew. Her authority was smoke and mirrors. And then Inspector Martinez stepped forward, his voice calm but final. "The HOA has no authority to impose access routes on private land. Fees collected under that pretense are invalid." You could feel the air shift. Neighbors leaned back, murmuring in agreement, realization dawning like a sunrise. Elaine's face flushed red. She flipped through her binder as if the right page might magically appear. It never did. The county launched an investigation. Elaine was removed from her role. Every bogus safety fee was refunded with fines attached. And a letter went out to every homeowner stamped with the county seal. Property rights are defined by law, not by intimidation. Standing on my rebuilt deck. Weeks later, plaque on the wall. Carter Family Property, established 1972. I realized how close I'd come to losing it all. Not because of fire, not because of neglect, but because someone thought fear and paperwork could steal what my grandfather built. And here's the lesson I'll leave you with: if you don't know your rights, someone else will rewrite them for you.